Hi everybody, how are you doing today? So today's video is going to be a follow-up video to one that Wranglerstar has done about a year ago, and it's about handkerchiefs. Specifically, he was looking for a made in the USA handkerchief, so he reviewed the Have a Hank, and I saw it and I kind of was disappointed because like Wranglerstar, I like to buy made in America, made in Canada stuff, support manufacturing and small businesses here in our own shores. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to order the exact same handkerchief that Wranglerstar had, and also order one that was, say, made overseas. Now, I bought both of these handkerchiefs from Lamley's here, so local distributor. I didn't try to use the same supply chain that Wranglerstar did or anything like that. I just went and bought it from just from a random retailer that sells this kind of stuff, and I just wanted to see if I had the same results that he did. So let's go ahead and take a look at first the Have a Hank and see if it has the same issues that Wranglerstar had on his review. Okay, the first thing I just wanted to point out is this definitely has the same issue that Wranglerstar had in terms of the print being on not being square on the handkerchief. See, this here is kind of even. But as we go along, it narrows down. It's not square, it's not off center. So the exact same issue that he had. Now, the one thing I really do like the pattern on this versus the foreign one, but we'll get into that a bit later. So I would say I completely agree with Wranglerstar on this. The printing is off. It's not square. It basically looks exactly like the one he had. Now, where things are going to be different is when it comes to the square. So on this one I got from Have a Hank, the material was actually cut quite square. If we try this both ways, it folds up nice, and I can't complain for a handkerchief. It's pretty square. Now, the one Wranglerstar had, if you guys want to watch that video, when his material came up, it wasn't cut square. It finished off something like so. It was actually, I was pretty surprised that any company would send that out the door, but that's what happened on his. So his was actually quite poor quality overall. The cut and finish was out of alignment. The printing was out of alignment, and I could totally understand why he did not appreciate this handkerchief from Have a Hank. So let's just compare that to how the foreign one over here that's made in India was made. Okay, on this one that's made in India, the first thing that I noticed was that the printing on this was perfectly centered on the handkerchief. It wasn't off center like the Have a Hank one. So that was a huge plus. And then when we go and fold it over, it's also fairly square. So basically, this is what I would call a fairly well-made, stereotypical, something that's sewn overseas item. They usually are quite worried about quality because if they don't do a good job on it, the next manufacturer over will, and they just won't get repeat business. So I would say this is overall pretty good quality. So the next thing I want to go over now is kind of like the personal preference things. So color, the print pattern, and the edge finishing. And let's go ahead and take a look at those. First, I'm going to start with the foreign-made hanky. So when it comes to the material feel, they're both roughly the same texture. The American-made one definitely feels like a heavier fabric, but both very similar. Now, the foreign-made one, the colors are definitely brighter, more vibrant. versus the Have a Hank. You can see it's kind of a duller red. Now again, this is personal preference. I do like the darker red versus this guy, but overall it doesn't really matter. Some people use a handkerchief for a fashion accessory, some use it to blow their nose. I personally like a handkerchief if I'm working out on the farm, just for putting over my nose once in a while if it gets really dusty out. Also, they're great for keeping sun off your neck. But anyways, the foreign one, definitely brighter colors. Now as far as the print pattern, this one made in India, it looks kind of Western, but it's got a bit of an Indian flair to the pattern. And I actually prefer the Have a Hank pattern a lot better. So the Have a Hank pattern, this looks more Western, looks more American to me. I quite prefer this one. The pattern name is the same on both of them when I ordered it, but they are slightly different. But I do like the Have a Hank pattern overall much better. Like I said, it looks a lot more Western. This other guy, it's not super noticeable, but to me it looks a little bit more Indian type pattern on it, and I just prefer the Western myself. So, all right, next I'm going to show the seams and the stitching on the side. So on the foreign made hanky, you can see it's got a rolled over seam with a single stitch in the side. Rolls over, it's got a nice finish to it. To me, if they would have done a double stitch on this to make it just a better seam, it would have been better, but it's very clean stitch. Looks good. It's very neatly done, and can't complain. There's no quality issues on that whatsoever. On the Have a Hank hanky here, you can see this seam was done by a serger. So basically, you wouldn't have that rolled over edge. It's basically just a machine that would go down and stitch it. Now, the fold over stitch from the foreign hanky looks cleaner on the front, but has that lip on the back, whereas the serger, it kind of just makes it so the material doesn't fray. So this is kind of the same type of stitch you would have on your jeans on the seam. But it's really personal preference. I don't think that makes much of a difference. Quality-wise, this is probably a better stitch to use. The only thing that I would say with this type of stitch is you do get some of this material type fraying. So if that's a bother to you, you would probably like the fold-over stitch better. But I do think long-term, with the serger edge, that's probably just a better way of finishing it overall. So really it comes down to personal preference on this. All right, the last thing I wanted to take a look at was the quality of the printing itself. Does the pattern have sharp lines? Are the colors good? And let's go ahead and take a look at the foreign handkerchief first, and then we'll check out the Have a Hank. So this might be a little bit hard to tell in the video, but if you can see these lines on this foreign handkerchief, this is the one made in India, the printing isn't super sharp. And that's kind of the easiest one to see because it's that big. But if we go and look just at some of the other print on this, it's okay, but it's just not super sharp. You can kind of see like right in here, it's kind of blotchy a little bit. Like I said, it's it's okay, but it's not like super crisp lines. Now the color is very good in terms of it's very dark black, very bright white, and very rich red, but the sharpness and the quality of the printing, to me, it's just not quite there on this one made in India. So further back, it's okay, like you can't really tell. Like it's not horrible, but it's not super crisp. Compared to the Have a Hank, the printing on this is actually quite crisp, much better, less kind of blotchy or sporadic than the one made in India. The Have a Hank must have a better way of printing this on their fabric or material. Just every inch of it was much crisper lines on the pattern itself. And definitely the print quality is much better. Now, I don't know if you can tell in this lighting, but the print darkness, the black is not as black and the white is not as white as the one printed in India, and the red is definitely not as vibrant. However, I think after a couple of washes in the machine, you're going to get that fading regardless. And after all, it's just a handkerchief, so it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, but we're just talking about pure quality here. Just going to zoom back, see if might not be able to tell the color difference on camera, but I promise you in real life that's kind of what it looks like. Okay, just to summarize everything we've looked at, the Have a Hank, the pattern was printed slightly off square. May or may not matter to you, but that was the case. I prefer the pattern itself. The pattern was printed on here with very sharp lines. The colors are a little bit dull. That may or may not matter to you. And the seam was done with the serger and well finished. So overall, pretty decent. It's really just that printing quality. This one was cut square. If you guys watched the Wranglerstar video, that one was definitely cut way out of square. So this was definitely a much better item than what he got in terms of quality in that way. The foreign made handkerchief, much darker, more vibrant colors. The seam was the fold over, probably just fine in terms of quality. It's a little cleaner looking than the serger, but overall the seam is finished. The pattern on this, I didn't like it quite as much as the Have a Hank, and although the colors are vibrant, the print itself on the material just doesn't have quite as sharp lines. That may or may not matter to some people. And the other thing, the foreign made one was slightly lighter material than the Have a Hank, but there was more of it. This was, I think, 3 inches longer, 3 inches wider all around. So this is slightly a bit bigger. Now the other thing too, with the one made in India here, the pattern was perfectly centered, whereas the Have a Hank one was kind of cockeyed during the printing. So I think if this Have a Hank could just get their printing straight, I would go with this one all day long. Made in America, I'm all about supporting jobs made on our shores here versus having everything outsourced, and seeing a lot of effects of that now with this Ukraine war. Things are getting expensive here and they're hard to get because we've let other countries make everything basically. So, okay, final thoughts. It kills me that this print isn't squared on here because that's all they would have to do to make this the hands down winner for me. But at the end of the day, I'm still going to support American, Canadian businesses, keep the manufacturing on our shores. So I'm going with the Have a Hank all day long. Wranglerstar had a lot more quality issues with his than the one that came with mine. Mine's cut square; it just isn't printed square. So the one made in India, slightly bigger, but at the end of the day, I want to support North American manufacturing. And price-wise, like they were both similarly priced at the store, so why would I buy a foreign-made item when I could buy something made in America? So anyway, that's just my own personal thoughts on it. Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below. And I'm also going to leave the link to Wranglerstar's video when he reviewed the Have a Hank originally, and you'll kind of see the quality issues that he had. I think, like I said, he had little more issues with the handkerchief quality than what came on this one. And anyways, we'll see you guys in the next video.